Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel / broadcasted to Facebook. My name is Stacy. I am so excited to share the audition process with group fitness managers, as I know that as a group fitness manager myself, we are constantly getting information from instructors as to how to succeed at their audition, but we aren't always given the tools to conduct or get the most out of an instructor's audition. And there's many ways to conduct an audition. Today, I'm mostly going to focus on the strategies that I recommend when it comes to learning the most and preparing the best for the instructor and for yourself, and what to look for in that audition. And it's more than just how the instructor teaches. So let's dive into that. If you're watching on this YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe to this channel. I'm more than excited to continue to share feedback and information for group fitness managers specifically, because I see such a lack of it in the industry, and I know now more than ever we are needing that. So welcome if you're new. If you're back, welcome back. And once again, we're talking about auditions today. So if you've missed some of my previous videos before this about the hiring process, do look back, because I talk about the interview process just last week and some other ideas and basically an outline of what the hiring process looks like for me when I hire instructors. So right now, I know a lot of us are going to start that process, or we're starting to get some applications around this time, right after the pandemic. Well, I want to say we're still in the pandemic, but I know that I myself am starting to experience that at this time in February of 2021. So whether you're listening to that now during this time or you listen later, this will be information that's important to you no matter what. So let's recap the hiring process really fast before we dive into the audition itself. We've done hopefully some sort of an introduction with the instructor, getting their resume, obtaining their application from your human resources department, or maybe they reach out to you directly. Then we conduct that interview, and now we're into the audition process. Let's pretend this is an instructor who's making it through each one of these phases. And then we have a second interview, potentially, a time where we meet with the instructor again. I highly recommend that as well, and we'll talk about that in a future video. Then, in some cases, I do kind of see how much buy-in they have to work with our facility by asking them to do some homework along the way, or potentially do some homework before we actually sign the dotted line and send them the offer letter. So that's the hiring process as a whole. And now let's talk about why that's so important. I've prefaced a lot of these videos with the why, and I like to focus on that because it's more than just how your members are going to respond to this instructor. It's so much about how your team is going to see you as a leader, and how you choose and hire, and the amount of work someone has to go through in order to earn their place on the team is so valuable to your team, as well as you need to see yourself in the future. This person, they may have members who fall in love with their class, but is this person going to be someone that you can lead and work with, and that your team can work with for a long time? I always think about the long run. I always think about the future of being with and working with this person. So think about that and make sure that that's why we should really take our time when we're hiring instructors. Next, let's talk about how to prepare an instructor for the audition. So by now you've conducted the interview. After the interview, I cannot stress enough how much value I find in giving a potentially new instructor, someone who is about to audition for me, absolutely everything they could possibly need to know to succeed in the audition. And you might think to yourself when you hear that, well, why would I want to give them everything I want to see from them before they audition? That's just going to be too much information, and they're going to not be an authentic instructor. They're just going to do everything I tell them to do. I would pump the brakes on that thought, because if you do provide them with what exactly you're looking for, and they can deliver, and they really pay attention to what you've asked of them, then that's actually a good thing. But if they read your information or don't read your information, where you provided all of this great insight to how they can prepare and be successful in the audition, and then they are not successful, or they do not obviously read those things, then that's a huge sign that they aren't going to be necessarily interested in your feedback or what your club stands for and what your team stands for as far as quality experiences for your participants. So that's, I would say, a really great tool I've learned is prepare them. And it also makes you look great as a leader. The more you can give them before they actually audition, the more it shows that you are really driving for their success. You're really supporting them even before you've seen them audition or hired them for your team. So I stress that so much. Start with, of course, what day and time. I always repeat everything I need to say as we're scheduling the audition. So let's say we schedule the audition for a Thursday at 2 o'clock. I re-emphasize the date and time, and then I go into details, because if they don't show up, which has happened to me before, last week we had fun. I had fun talking about some of the crazy things I've seen in interviews. People coming in their pajamas. Comment if you remember that. I'm gonna have to do a video on some of the crazy stuff that's happened. But if you comment too, if you're a manager or you've been a manager and you've had someone not show up for an audition, it's awful. I guess it's now in human resources world called ghosting, similar to dating. So I can't help but laugh a little bit by that. But it's not fun when you put all of that work into seeing someone teach. I also recommend that you find instructors to come and attend their potential class or their audition, because it provides them with some people to actually teach rather than just you. I would not recommend it just be you as the participant. Make sure you can find some other instructors to take the audition and prepare that auditionee, that person who's auditioning, prepare them for what to expect. You will be there. There's going to be a few other instructors who will be there, but I don't necessarily always recommend, because there's some legalities and liabilities, I don't recommend using members as participants unless they already work for you and they're auditioning for a separate class. Maybe they're a Pilates instructor who got their yoga certification. They want to audition for yoga. In that case, you could do kind of a pop-up class and do their audition that way, and members could attend because they're an employee. They're responsible for that liability, and your club is more secure that way. However, someone who's external, who's not an employee for you, as I mentioned, give them all the information they need as to who is going to be there, potentially, usually even when I email my team of 65 people and I ask them to come to this audition, I tend to only get 5 to 10 participants. And I would incentivize those people to take the class by giving them a quick, like, $5 Starbucks gift card or something small that can incentivize people to come, because there's going to be so much more insight you can gather from how the instructor teaches when there's an actual decent example of the class. And that's where group auditions can really come into play. If you're specifically hiring for a specific format, a specific time, and there's several applicants, good for you. Put those applicants together and do their audition together, and you'll learn a lot about what those applicants are all about in how they attend each other's classes, and how they demonstrate that they're able to be a good participant as well, and that they enjoy being a participant, because all instructors should enjoy being a participant just as much as they do teach. Such a learning place for instructors. So those are some ideas on how you can prepare the person, how you can set up the audition yourself. Obviously identify and help them know, here's how much time we want you to work on, do the warm-up. I usually don't make the auditions a full hour either, so that's another input for you guys. An audition only really needs to be about 20, 30 minutes. I've heard managers who've said, I know if I'm gonna hire someone in 10 minutes. And if you do, good for you. I'm not quite there yet. I need at least 20 to 30 minutes of good solid teaching before I really know if I'm gonna hire somebody. So that's important information. Give them how much time you want them to spend in the warm-up, how much time you want them to spend on this, and this, what you're expecting them to say in or to go over in the introduction, in the meat of the class, the middle of the class, what you're looking for as far as options, or what they should be looking for as far as levels. And even if your group fitness instructors are coming to this and they're all super strong, ask them to provide various levels as if they weren't all that strong or fit or perfect. Not all the instructors are as fit as I think applicants might realize. So giving those options gives them permission to back off, especially if they've been teaching a lot that day. So those are some ways to help the applicant be successful in the audition and for you to see if they really are paying attention to the information you're giving them before that audition. Next, you really want to ask for feedback, especially if you have instructors who are coming to the audition. Give them a heads up that afterwards you'd love for them to follow up with you on how the audition went. Maybe even ask them some specific questions like did you feel like you understood what the instructor was doing throughout the class? Did you feel there was enough levels? So give them some specific questions rather than how did it go, or you're just going to get, I enjoyed it, it was fun, because they want to be supportive of a potential addition to their team. They just want to be nice about it. So give them some specific feedback to give you that's going to help you decide on whether you would hire the person or not. And then finally, we start to prepare for the audition. So those are the audition points to prepare the instructor. And then you yourself are, of course, doing things on the back end to get the team ready to come to the audition, inviting them, and then you, of course, are there for that audition as well. So based on the interview that we did and the interview video I did just last week, we hopefully learned, depending on the questions you asked the instructor, whether you use the exact questions I gave you for examples, or if you phrase them in a different way. Ideally, we have to find out in that initial interview, what's their backstory? Where did their experience come from? We're trying to learn how they describe their role in the industry, who they believe they are as an instructor, who they enjoy teaching, what they enjoy teaching. We should also have learned how they prepare for class, how they would describe the environment of their class and the actual experience of their class, and then how having an idea of how they will contribute to the team. So at this point, you should hopefully know, okay, we really could use some more yoga instructors. We may have a full team of teachers who are teaching at various times, but don't hire for subs. I wouldn't recommend that. That's another video in itself. But I would recommend you creating a deep bench of applicants that are ready in the wings you've interviewed them and you've auditioned them. You know you want to hire those people. So you have a hope after that interview of what class format you plan on using them for. So really recommend you thinking about those things after the interview. And then that's where the prompt for the audition happens. You have decided this person can contribute to your team, and you're really excited to see them teach. You're really excited to see what they've explained to you and take that into a practical situation. So let's talk about the audition itself. So while they're auditioning, the things you want to look for are not just, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's not just, can they teach a good class? Can they teach a class your members will enjoy? It's more about, how do the dots connect from the interview and the experience they explained to you as their potential manager. If they told you, I teach yoga, I provide all levels to students, and you do their audition and there's a disconnect with that, you see their audition, they're giving no options, they're not even hinting that they can give options, then that disconnect is going to be a problem. And then next, thinking about if there's a disconnect potentially in how they teach higher intensity cardio exercises. Do they give options? Do they look like they're planning for class? So if they told you in the audition, I plan my class thoroughly, I do more than just think about the playlist, I think about so much more, then it's going to be really important for you to pay attention to those things. So take lots of notes in the interview, identify what are the things that they said make their class stand out and are a showcase of them as an instructor, and then pay attention to those and do those dots connect in the actual audition. And then give them some feedback. So, and that's a learning experience in itself. If someone does an audition for you and you hopefully are seeing all the dots connect, but there might be a couple of things, there's always something every instructor can work on. I know I'm not even perfect when it comes to providing feedback. I may not know everything. But when someone approaches an instructor with feedback, their reaction is a huge insight into how how they understand what they taught, and if they do take feedback well. So what I mean by that is when I provide feedback, an instructor really listens to me, then I know that they're taking in what I'm saying and they're processing it, and then they might have an idea of what I may have seen or experienced and given me some idea of what they were thinking or why they did that. So for example, if you ask, you had said in your interview that you provide lots of options. There were a couple of opportunities where you weren't providing as many options. I saw that there were a few more things you could have done, and then give them some examples. Their reaction to that is going to be really important. Whether they necessarily agree with you or not, there's a way to talk about where they're coming from and a way to address that feedback than the latter. So it should be, you can really tell if they're critically thinking while they're teaching or not, and if they're able to provide you with that information. And the answer to those questions should never be, well, I've been doing this for a really long time. That's a big red flag for me, which we'll talk about in a second. But you should definitely give them some form of feedback after the audition. Don't, of course, do it in front of everybody who just took the audition. Do it privately after the audition, and then give them room to talk to you about why they may have or have not done something in the audition. And you might be surprised by them going, you know what, I was so nervous. This is a great insight. I don't mind this at all. It's nerve-wracking to do an audition. So if they say, I was so nervous, I usually do this, then that's a really good sign for me as their potential manager that they were just nervous. And that is also insight into that they take it seriously. They took that audition seriously. So pay attention to those things. Pay attention to the conversations you have from then on with that person, whether it's online or it's in person. How is that relationship being built over time before you sign that dotted line to hire somebody? And then after the audition, definitely we're going to talk about follow-up. We're going to talk about the second audition or second interview if it's necessary. I have been known, especially if it's a newer instructor who I need to see one more time before I commit to them teaching anything. And it's a great way for me to see if they took feedback, but that's in a situation if I'm really, really eager to hire someone or need a spot filled. And that's where we'll talk about in future videos what we can do as managers to prepare better so that we never are scrambling, so we can take this time hiring people. But those are some ideas of what to look for, what to pay attention to. And another bonus for me is, did they potentially bring a plan for class? And I know there's some controversy in the industry. I've heard it, even master instructors say you should never have like a piece of paper in front of you. I tell my instructors auditioning, they are more than welcome to bring a piece of paper with them. It shows me that they're prepared, and as I mentioned earlier, if they're nervous, it's a tool that they can use to reference to every once in a while if they need to. And so I don't see that as a problem if someone does need notes, as long as they're not holding them in front of their face and depending on them the entire time. That's not a big deal. I've had some of the best auditions I've had are when the instructor brings a well-formatted plan and then gives me a copy. That is, to me, really, really exciting. It's like a form of their group fitness specific resume. They took the time to show me how they think and how they plan for their class, and to me, that's really valuable. And then finally, some red flags before we go today. I wanted to talk about things that for me are a big deal, and some of them are pretty straightforward, but some of them might not be as straightforward. So first is obviously if there's some disconnect, pay attention to those things, disconnect between what they said they would provide in the interview and then what their actual class experience for you was like. And then second is, did they show up unprepared? Does the clothing that they're wearing not match what they had said that they would be wearing? We have uniforms at our club. I specifically asked them to wear something similar to, and it's just a simple blue uniform, but they could just wear something, a different color, but something where it's midriff is covered, tell them leggings, tell them what to be wearing for that audition. And then if they're not prepared, or if they're not on time, or if they obviously weren't reading the instructions I sent them and what we needed them to do in the audition, then those are big red flags. And then finally, which may be a red flag for some of you guys, but or may not, is how they react to that feedback. We want, as group fitness managers, to be sure that this is a person that not only we can count on working with for a long time, but our team can count on working with, and that our members can continue to enjoy, because they're such a great team player, they're a hard worker, they come prepared for those members, and they show up to serve those members. In the fitness industry, we need more instructors who are not just there to perform. And you can look back at past posts on my Instagram page I've provided on the difference between a performer instructor and an actual teacher instructor, and just the important difference between the two of those. And that would help you in seeing that in the audition potentially. So take a look at that. And I look forward to reading your feedback, your comments about this, and hearing some maybe fun stories from you as far as auditions go, or what are some strategies you use for your audition. Next up for our videos coming up for the hiring process, we have some information about the homework I tend to give applicants, the second interview I tend to ask them to prepare for if that's necessary. It's almost always necessary for me. And so we'll talk about more about that. And then we'll dive into some tips and tricks to make the audition process and the interview process easier for you as a manager, on your time and on your energy. And you can still be there for those applicants and to continue to build your team. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you did, and you'll get more information about upcoming videos as I continue to work on supporting group fitness managers, and can't wait to hear from you to help you more as well. Have a great day, and thank you for watching.